Hi, everybody. It's Sahara Rose, and I would like to welcome you to the first of my weekly webinars, which are going to discuss very different topics every single week. And the first week, I thought, what better than to kick it off with Ayurveda? So a lot of you may have noticed that I do post about Ayurveda a lot on my Instagram and on my blog, and I wanted to discuss more about what Ayurveda is. It's a term that a lot of us have heard around, especially those of us that are more familiar with health or yoga or holistic medicine, but really what is Ayurveda? And it is such a huge umbrella term, and there are so many different facets to Ayurveda. So I wanted to break it down, especially about the nutrition portion. So about 3 years ago, I began my discovery with Ayurveda, and it was after I was following a mostly raw vegan diet for about 8 months. And while I was raw, I was noticing a lot of imbalances in my body. I was frequently cold all the time. It was very difficult for me to digest foods. I felt really bloated after everything I ate. And despite eating all of these really amazing, nutritious ingredients, I felt like my body was not absorbing them. I wasn't feeling very energized. I looked really pale, just kind of like a sick or even malnourished person, which was really interesting because I was eating all of the fruits and vegetables in the world. And it was one of the first times that I had gone to India, and I decided to go to an Ayurvedic doctor. And I thought of an Ayurvedic doctor kind of like a psychic. Like I thought it was someone who takes your pulse and then tells you, what kind of like future you're going to have, who you're going to marry. Like I really didn't consider it a medicine. And then once I went to the Ayurvedic doctor, they immediately took my pulse and they just started telling me things about myself that honestly I had no idea how they knew. They told me, they were like, you were upset earlier in the day and you had trouble sleeping last night, and all of these really things that were super spot on. And the suggestion that the Ayurvedic doctor gave me was to stop eating these raw foods. And for me, that was a huge slap in the face. I was like, how can she tell me not to eat raw foods? I had been studying raw nutrition and really dedicated to that raw lifestyle. So she told me that all of the raw foods were actually really hard for my body to digest and were breaking down my Agni. So Agni is a term that we're going to discuss today, and Agni in Sanskrit means fire. So your fire is your digestion, and you can only digest foods as strong as your fire is burning. So someone with a really strong digestive fire is the kind of person who can just eat whatever they want. You always have those friends that they can eat ice cream and burgers and soda and all of these things one after another and be totally fine. And that's because their Agni, their digestive fire, is running strong. So the Ayurvedic doctor told me that my Agni was severely damaged because of all of the raw foods I was eating, which were really cooling. And if I continued this way, I would experience many imbalances later on in my life due to increased Vata. So Vata is the first dosha that we are going to be talking about tonight, and that is the wind energy. So I decided to try some of the suggestions that the Ayurvedic doctor gave to me, even though they totally went against my principles, such as eating only cooked foods and having ghee, which is clarified butter, which as a raw vegan, I didn't even want animal products, let alone butter. So it was a huge change for me, but I immediately noticed really drastic differences, not only in my body, but also in my mind. I was a lot more focused, a lot more grounded, better able to complete tasks that I began. And I realized that the foods I was putting into my body were playing such a major toll into the way I was feeling mentally. And really the premise of Ayurveda is this mind and body connection. The way that our body is being treated is the way that our mind is going to create. So that's something that we're really going to dive into tonight. I just wanted to start off with my personal story. And then ever since I started applying Ayurveda into my life, I am more focused, I am more energized. It doesn't mean that I don't eat raw foods. Now I am totally able to eat raw foods. It's just that I know when my body can handle it and when it cannot. So for example, if I'm somewhere really cold, if I'm back home where I grew up in Boston, I'm not going to eat smoothies all day because that's going to be too cooling for my body. Whereas now that I'm in California, this can permit a lot more cooling or cold foods because the climate is so hot. So really, Ayurveda is not a diet, but rather a philosophy of eating. And it has to do with what your temperament is, as well as the temperament of your environment. So in Ayurveda, as well as in Chinese medicine, macrobiotics, shamanic studies, there are 5 elements. And these 5 elements are based on the natural properties of the earth. So maybe if you guys have a piece of paper, it's a good time to start writing stuff down. And also I'm going to turn on the question and answer thing. I think that's on, just so in case you guys want to, oh, I think I'm on this twice. Okay. Opened the Q&A. Ayurveda, as well as in Chinese medicine, macrobiotics. Okay, I opened up the Q&A, so anytime you guys want, shoot me a question. I'll also open up the live chat. Okay, and the group chat is open as well. So I think you guys can turn that on the left side. On the top, it says chat. And then the 4th one says Q&A. So I'm gonna, questions. Okay. Anyways, I'm gonna continue talking. And I just typed hello in the live chat. So whoever's on right now, I invite you to introduce yourself in the live chat so we can get a little feel of who's tuning in right now. And then anytime you want in the live chat, ask a question or share whatever it is, and I'll read it out loud for people. And if anyone wants to share something on the video, also let me know, and I can see how I can tune you in to talk on the video so you're not just watching, but you can come talk. So the group chat is on. So the group chat is the first one, the blue button. Okay. So the 5 elements. The first of the 5 elements is earth. Earth is the most grounding of the energies. So when you think of earth, you think of calming, soothing, grounding, nourishing. Really think of the principles of, if you're feeling really earthy, you're not really up here. Your energy is further rooted. It's in your root chakra. Your root chakra is your connection to the earth. So that's why you'll notice in a lot of, for example, African dances are very earthy, very primal. And they have bent knees and they're really low to the ground and they're sucking in that earth energy. And our access to the earth directly correlates with our jaw. So I want you right now to just massage your jaw like this, wherever you're sitting, and feel if there's tension. So a tense jaw shows that there is some sort of blockage in your root chakra, and that can be an imbalance of earth energy. So earth energy, very grounding, but at the same time, too much earth energy can make you too calm, unable to start new tasks, maybe stuck in old habits, because earth is it moves really, really slowly. So sometimes if we're too earthy, we're resistant to that change. So it's all about finding that balance. The second energy that we're going to discuss is water. Now, water is flowing, it's fluid. It can be very, very strong, but at the same time, really light. So if you think of like on the beach, waves can knock you down and completely flow you away. They can be super destructive, but at the same time, it can be really fluid. And someone who's watery is able to sort of go with the flow. They're able to perceive a situation and go about it in the right way. Water in the body, too much of it can lead to water retention. So if you're noticing, for example, in the morning, you're wearing your rings, but then at night, they're not fitting you anymore. Similar to a pregnant woman, her feet might get really swollen. That's too much water energy. Then we have fire. So fire is our Agni, is our digestion, it's our strength, it's our willpower. It is in charge of all transformation in our body. So a strong digestive fire will lead to strong nutrient assimilation, because when you're able to break down your foods correctly, you're able to absorb all of the nutrients of the foods that you're eating. So it's very, very important to have a strong digestive fire. However, too strong of a digestive fire can also lead to imbalances. If you've ever felt acidic after eating, you're really feeling the acid move up, that is an imbalance of fire because it's not staying in your stomach. The acid's actually coming up and you're tasting it literally in your mouth. So some people ask me, they're like, well, how do I know if I have heartburn? If you ever felt an acidic taste in your mouth after you ate something, that's heartburn. And it's actually really interesting. So a lot of people, they think, oh, well, then I should stay away from lemons or vinegar because these things are acidic. While they are acidic foods, they don't have acidic properties. So when I talk about acidity, I'm talking about in the pH. So we have alkaline on one side and acid on the other, and all foods are somewhere on the pH scale. A healthy body is going to be more alkaline because diseases can only spread in an acidic form. That doesn't mean you only eat alkaline foods. You have to eat a combination of acidic and alkaline foods. However, you can eat acidic things like lemon and apple cider vinegar, and this is actually going to help balance your hyperacidity within your body. So if you're feeling heartburn or anything, the best thing to have is some apple cider vinegar because that's really going to have an alkalizing effect on your body. So that fire, transformation, nutrient assimilation. In the mind, it makes you goal-oriented, strong. But at the same time, it can make you fiery. It can make you feisty. It can make you angry. This is all too much fire that's going through the wrong channels and turning into road rage instead of going into chasing your goals. So it's really important to balance your fire so you're not blowing up at everyone, but you know when to have that strength when it's needed. That brings us into the fourth element, which is air. So air is a very interesting one because a lot of us are like, well, how do I know what air is? And air is all around us, but it's very rare that we can actually see it. So an airy person, for example, would be someone more cerebral. Their thoughts are up here, whereas the earth, the thoughts were in the root chakra. Air is all up in the third eye. So an airy person might be artistic, creative, musical, philosophical, but they may have trouble coming back down to earth because all of their energy is flying up here. In the body, too much air energy can lead to dryness. It can lead to fragility. It can lead to poor muscle definition. So these are all things that you'll have to consider if you are too much in the air element. And foods that have a lot of air would be foods that are like leafy greens. Leafy greens, if you look at their qualities, they kind of flow in the wind, and that brings out the airy qualities within us. And then the last of the 5 elements is space energy. So space is our connection to the universe. So it's like air is here, space is up here. So that's up in our crown chakra, and space energy connects us with source, connects us with universe, connects us with all things that are greater than us. So someone with strong space energy may be really, really in tuned, aligned with what's important to them. But if you're really super spacey, I mean, we've all seen people like that, and you're just talking to them, you're like, dude, like, what planet are you from? And it's really easy to get kind of like washed away in your own world where everything is like happy and dandy. And sometimes reality sucks, but you need that grounding. You need that balance of here and down here to make you connected as a human being. So going back to the 5 elements, so we have earth, water, fire, air, and space. So if anyone has any questions right now in the live chat, I'm not sure if you guys are able to access it because no one's typed in it except for me. You can ask any question. I'll type in it. And then you can also email me at sahara@eatfeelfresh.com anytime during this if you have any questions as well, and I can be answering them. I have this up. Okay, so now we're going to discuss the 3 doshas. Now, dosha is an Ayurvedic mind-body type. And a dosha is basically a combination of these elements, and they exist not only in us, but the foods we eat. Everything that we do can be classified in a dosha. So the 3 doshas are Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. So Vata is a combination of air and space energy. Pitta is a combination of fire and water energy. Kapha is a combination of earth and water energy. So when people talk about Ayurveda, they mostly refer to Vata as wind because air and space is something kind of like windy. They normally refer to pitta as fire, even though it also has water in it. Charge of transformation. It's that determination, that strength, that digestion, the assimilation, that all comes under pitta. And then kapha, a lot of people refer to it as earth, even though it is earth and water. And it is grounding, it's binding, it's soothing, but it's also resistant to change. It can be stagnant. So I'm going to start with kind of helping you assess where you are. I'm going to ask you guys several questions, and I would love for you to just write it down on Microsoft Word or on a piece of paper if you're old school. So this can be a little doshic analysis so you can see where you are. We are all a combination of all three doshas. We just have them in varying amounts. We are born with our prakriti, which is the dosha combination that we are naturally born with. However, due to our lifestyle, our diet, the way we treat our body, our doshas might change. And that's our vikriti, which is our current dosha constitution. So the best way to tell is to really break down and see what's natural to you, and then what are things that you may be doing to your body that are causing an imbalance. So I want you to take out your paper or your Word document and answer the following questions. Okay. Describe your skin. The first tendency, you have bumps on your arms. You put moisturizer on your arms and it's just sucking it right in, extremely dry. The second would be oily. Maybe you even have breakouts of acne. You need to wash your hair every day. You just are generally a more oily person. The third is somewhere in between. You might have an oily T-zone and dryness here, a combination. You're not super dry, you're not oily, it might shift. So that's the first thing for you to write down. The second thing is your physiology. Now, are you one, naturally a thin person? It's hard for you to put on muscle, even if you work out. No matter what you eat, you don't seem to put on weight. But that doesn't mean you don't feel sick. You're just naturally a more thin person. In your body, you might also be tall. You might have a long face. But in general, more thin, more bony. You might have cracking joints or prominent joints that people can see. Like for me, my body is pretty much that one. I won't tell you what it is. I'm sure you can guess what dosha that is. So if that relates to you, just write that down. The second would be a medium body type. You can put on muscle easily if you work out. You are naturally more athletic person. You're not really big, you're not really small, somewhere in between. And the third one is you tend to put on weight easily. You eat something wrong and you notice instantly you've gained weight. And you're more sedentary, your bones, or you might feel like you're big boned, they're really strong. You can like persevere, you can kind of work out for a really long time if you need to, but probably don't want to. You're just a well-built person. Okay? Now the third thing I'm going to ask you is about your digestion. So the first option is you eat something and you kind of feel bloated after, maybe gassy. Sometimes you're really hungry and other times you can go the entire day without eating. It's really variable. Super hungry, not hungry. You tend to snack, kind of walk around, munch something, put it away. You're not really on par with your food schedule. It sort of just varies. You're a very variable person in general when it comes to eating. The second option would be your diet is really on point. You get really irritable if you miss a meal. So you got to have your breakfast, lunch, and dinner, or whatever your snacks are. And you need food. Like if you don't have a meal, everyone around you is going to have the wrath of it. So eating is super important to you. And the last one, kapha, is you absolutely love to eat, but you could go a really long time without eating. You tend to feel really full for a long time when you eat. So you could eat like one meal a day, but you're naturally prone towards sweets or dairy and creamy and, rich foods like that. You're not really the salad kind of person. You want your mac and cheese, your pasta, your risotto, that kind of stuff. Okay? And then the next question I'm going to ask you is about your body temperature. Are you someone who is, one, more cold? Everyone's in shorts and you're like, oh my God, like, how are you doing this right now? You tend to get really cold easily. You might notice your feet and hands tend to be cold a lot of the time. Second, you're someone who gets hot easily. If it's the summertime, you don't have air conditioning on, game over. You get really irritable as well if you're really hot, and you'll tend to notice like redness in your face and in your body. You might even have rosacea. And, you know, when you're working out, you might sweat a lot. You get just overheated easily. And then the third one would be you have more of a tendency to feel cold. You might have clammy hands and feet, so it might be a little, you might have a little moisture on them. You're not like dying of coldness, but you are more on the cold side. You tend to prefer hot and dry weather. Okay. So that's a little dosha quiz. So the first one of all of the options is Vata. So a Vata person is someone who has more dry skin, hair. They have a tendency to be more on the thin side. Their appetite is variable. Sometimes they're really hungry and sometimes they're not. And they tend to be cold as well. So when we think of Vata, we can think of the seasons. With all the doshas. So Vata would be fall. So when you think of the fall leaves, they're brittle and they're breaking down on the floor. And that's really what a Vata person is like. They're not breaking down on the floor. I mean, maybe they are, but they have a tendency to get dry and cool if they're not properly nourished. So in their bodies, they might have cracking joints. Like I know I have to crack my back like 10 times a day, which is a really bad habit. But it's because I have a Vata imbalance, and they need moisture in their skin. So if you're Vata, sesame oil is going to be really, really amazing for you because that's a warming oil. Vata people in their minds have a lot going on. So like the wind, one idea is flowing and one idea is flowing out, and they have a hard time sticking to one task. So one day they're like, oh my God, I'm all about this job. I freaking love it. Like this is my career. All about that. They're not sleeping nights working on this project. And then one day they're just like, no, it's not for me. I'm done with it. And they're like, screw it, I don't even want to work. Blah, blah, blah. And then they'll go on to another thing. And just like every time you talk to them, they have like a new life, like a new personality. You're just like, what's going on? And I totally relate to that because I used to be like that myself. When I was a raw vegan, which is a very Vata-inducing lifestyle, because you're not eating anything with grounding properties. And when I'm talking about grounding foods, I'm talking about literal foods under the ground, which kind of need to be cooked. Like you can't really eat raw sweet potatoes that much. And so I was really like scattered and all over the place and unable to sleep. If you have insomnia, that is due to a Vata imbalance. If you have anxiety, that is due to a Vata imbalance because there's no settling in the mind. It's like leaves, it's flowing, it's moving. And sometimes you meet people and they're talking so fast and they're talking a mile a minute and you don't even know what's going on. And that is Vata. And sadly, our society really promotes Vata because our society is constantly on the go. And they make you feel that as if you're not doing 5 things at a time, you're going to fall behind. So I know like when I'm on the computer, I have like 10 tabs open. I'm doing this, and I'm answering this, and I'm going on there. And that's going to increase my Vata because I'm unknowingly kind of stressing myself out and unable to focus because when you're doing 10 things at once, you're not going to be really focused on the one thing that you need to be giving your attention to. Eating while driving, snacking, these are all things that are going to bring up your Vata. When you're watching TV or you're on a walk or you're driving a car and you're eating something, your body is not mindful of the nutrients that it's taking in. So it's actually not going to absorb them. So a lot of Vata people suffer from malnourishment, from literal nutrient deficiency in a first world country. And that doesn't mean they're not eating all of the kale and avocados in the world. It means their body is not digesting it. And it's not you are what you eat, it's you are what you digest. So that's really a key thing that with Ayurveda, I want you to take home. It's you are what you digest. Digestion is everything. It doesn't matter if you're putting gold into your body. If your body can't break it down, if your body can't recognize it, it's going to go right through you. So if you're eating all of these really hard foods to digest, like tons of cabbage and raw kale, and you have a Vata imbalance, so you're feeling that dryness, that coldness, that scatteredness. You're feeling weak, you're feeling fatigued, you don't have the energy you once did. It's hard for you to put on muscle even though you're working out all the time. You're feeling kind of like stressed and like you need to be doing all these things. You can't sit still. If you're feeling that Vata imbalance, then I need you to eat foods that are the opposite qualities of that. And that means grounding foods. That means the yams, the sweet potatoes, the beetroot, the grains, the quinoa, the brown rice, things that a lot of us were afraid of. I know for me, I was like, I can't eat grains. Like, I'll gain weight. Like, no way. Like, raw all the way. No, like, you need grains in your diet. And I know a lot of the paleo movement and stuff, they're totally against it. But really, on a long-term scale, your body can't survive without a carbohydrate source because it's going to start looking for fuels in your brain. So that's why a Vata side effect is foggy mindedness. It's forgetting things and being really scattered. And that's because your body starts using your brain's energy just to survive. Infertility, that's a huge epidemic going on right now. And that is a Vata imbalance because so many women, they're working all day and then afterwards they're having the granola bar and like going to the gym and like running 10 miles and not treating their bodies the right way. And their bodies are in fear. They're in this constant state of like, oh my God, like I need to run around, do something. And your body doesn't know you paid $200 for that gym membership. It thinks you're in danger and you're like running away from something every single day. So it's going to say, okay, preserve all of the fat fuels, preserve everything we can, every single calorie, every single thing she puts into her body, because we don't know when's the next time she's going to start running from some sort of lion or something. And then what does your body not need to survive? Fertility. It doesn't need to reproduce. It needs to breathe. So that's why a lot of women, they stop menstruating, and that's a Vata imbalance. So if you're noticing you're not getting your periods or irregular periods, that can be Vata, too much Vata in your body. If you're noticing you're anxious, you're biting your teeth, you're afraid of the future all the time, that's Vata. So a Vata diet would be very grounding, nourishing, warming, staying away from those cold foods, those smoothies, those salads, those froyos and frozen bananas. These are all things that, even though they can be healthy, at this time for you are not right. And I know it is the hardest thing to let go of because it's what I lived off of for years. And it doesn't mean you're going to gain weight. In fact, your body is probably so hungry for those grains and those beans and those healthy fats that's just, when you start eating it, it's just you're gonna start feeling so much more energized. And it's not gonna turn to fat. It's gonna start feeding these parts of you, these joints and this brain that's been deprived for so long. So I really spend a lot of time with Vata because I think most of us have Vata imbalances, even though you may not naturally be a Vata. So you may not naturally be that kind of person who can eat whatever they want and stay thin. A lot of us have Vata imbalances because a lot of us are leading this Vata lifestyle. We're eating at random times, doing all these things. So it's all about grounding. It's maybe some meditation or doing a type of yoga that's not like competing against the person next to you, but actually holding a posture for 3 minutes and testing your patience. That's really medicinal for Vata, much more than like a crazy vinyasa flow, which is going to bring your Vata up. So in yoga, it's really interesting because some postures, for example, forward fold, they're really grounding. But when you're doing all of these, in in moon salutation Bs, you're doing all of these balancing poses and it brings your energy up here. So you actually want to be focused on more squatting, rooting, connection to the earth. So if anyone has Vata questions, you can type them into this box or send me an email, sahara@eatfeelfresh.com. And now I'm going to go into Pitta. So Pitta is the energy that is in charge of our determination, our strength, our motivation. In our body, it's in charge of transformation, digestion, metabolism. A strong Pitta person will be someone who's naturally competitive, goal-oriented. They kind of want to climb to the top of that corporate ladder. They want to be the best at everything they do. In the gym, they might be the ones like lifting weights, looking in the mirror, or they might be at CrossFit. These are very Pitta characteristics. However, too much Pitta can lead to anger, irritability, rage. And it can cause you to have too much acidity in the body. It can cause you to turn red easily. It can make, for example, a really pitta person would be someone who like snaps really easily. Like a CEO would be a really great pitta personality type. Like they're really on par, but you don't really want to cross their line because you're sort of walking on eggshells when it comes to a pitta. So if you're noticing a pitta imbalance, you're kind of feeling more agitated, on edge, or you're noticing that you're getting overheated, you're sweating more, you're unable to stand the heat, then it's all about cooling the body. So having some mint tea, some leafy greens, some more raw foods, juicy fruits like pineapple and mango would be really great for you. Coconut water is one of the greatest cooling things that we can have, as well as coconut meat and coconut oil, rubbing coconut oil into your body as well. Rose water is very beneficial to put on your skin, or having rose tea. So cooling does not mean frozen. Ayurveda does not recommend freezing foods or eating cold frozen foods to anyone. And that's because it inhibits our digestive fire. So it kind of puts out that spark that we need to break down all of our foods. It's like when you think of a fire, it's like pouring ice water onto the fire. So you want to keep that fire burning without having it burn too strongly that it's actually affecting you. So stay cooling, but at the same time, don't go totally cold. So having steamed greens would be a really great option. Barley is a really cooling grain. In terms of beans, mung beans, lentils, chickpeas, navy beans, they're all really great. You just want to stay away from spicy foods, stimulants, coffee, chocolate, because these are going to really heat up your body and will further your pitta imbalance. So spicy Thai, takeout, stuff like that, not for you if you're feeling pitta. And I know that sucks because pitta types really love it too. So if you feel like you're a pitta, let me know in the chat. And I will move on right now to kapha. So kapha is the third dosha, and it's earth and water energy. And it is very grounding. So a kapha person is really calm and well-spoken and easygoing. And they're the friend that everyone kind of comes to for emotional support. But at the same time, they may suppress their own emotions. It's hard for them to change. They might get stuck in their habits. In their bodies, you might notice that it's hard for you to lose weight. You might be very resistant to movement and exercise, just as your mind is resistant to trying new things. So what you really need to do is stimulate the body, and that's through exercise, like waking up in the morning and doing that power vinyasa, even though it's the last thing you want to do. So you really have to give yourself what medicine you need. Having ginger water is another thing to really rev up that digestive fire and give it the heat. So kapha is a cold and moist energy. So while vata was like the fall and pitta was like the summer, kapha would be like the spring. So the earth is really sucking in that water, and it's grounding and it's nourishing. Like children have a lot of kapha energy because they're growing. But too much of it in an older age can make us really stagnant. So if you're feeling like you're putting on all this weight, or you're retaining a lot of water, or you have a lot of mucus in your throat, in your nose, you're getting colds and coughs and phlegm. This is all a kapha imbalance, oversleeping, depression, all kapha. So stimulation, movement, ginger, spices, all of the things I told pitta not to do, it's time for you to do it. So balance that out, bring it out there, try new things every weekend. Like go on groupon.com and sign up for something you've never done before. And that's going to bring your energy up. And that's actually going to change your body, because the mind and the body are related. Having these spices in our food, and I'm not talking about putting Tabasco on everything, I'm talking about actual spices, cumin, cardamom, chili peppers, natural spices found on this earth, not stuff that's filled with sugar and put in a bottle. And these are really going to rev up your body and allow you to really live your life to the fullest, because no one should live their life in a bed. And we have all felt kapha at times. Doesn't mean we're always kapha, but you have those winters where you're just like, oh, I just don't want to move. And that's the time that you need that stimulation. So vata, pitta, and kapha are the three major doshas. So someone asked me, how do I know which dosha I am born with, and how do I know which one I have now? So I want you to think of things that come natural to you. So naturally growing up, like as a child, were you all over the place, really out there, energetic? That you may be naturally Vata. Do you naturally have that dry skin, those digestive problems, that preference for snacking and munching rather than sitting down and having actual meals and having a routine and habits? Or are you naturally a Pitta? Is your tendency to go more toward competitive and well organized and structure, but at the same time you do know that you have a temper, and you may have always had a temper. It's something that you're working on. So that means you may be naturally Pitta. Or are you naturally Kapha? You've always been kind of calm in nature. Kaphas tend to have round faces. So for me, I was born a Kapha. As a child, I was very sedentary, very resistant to exercise. I would like skip days that we had to work out at like school. If you had to run a mile, I was like, no way am I going, but take a test for sure, for sure. So I was naturally a Kapha, but because of my lifestyle, I was dancing at the competitive level. So I was dancing like 3 hours a day. And during that time, I was not eating enough. I was just eating salads and, lots of cold foods. And that caused me to become a Vata. So now I am definitely primarily Vata. And lastly, Kapha, which is interesting. But because of that, I suffer from a Vata imbalance, because my Vata can really easily go off because I'm leading a more Vata lifestyle. So I'm very mindful of trying to make myself Kapha. Like if I go out one night, I will make sure I stay in the next, or I do things that are really yin and restorative, and I make sure to ground myself. I try to eat more cooked and warm foods because I know it's very easy for my Vata to be thrown off balance. So it's always checking in on how your body is doing, and also comparing it to see where you are. Are you living in a very Pitta-inducing lifestyle? Are you working in a corporation? That's going to bring up your Pitta just even without you being a Pitta person. So you might have to do some Pitta pacifying practices just to bring that back into balance. Or do you live somewhere that like London where it's cold and raining all the time? That's going to bring up your Kapha. Or are you somewhere leading a really Vata lifestyle where you don't really have a routine and you're needing that grounding? Then maybe that grounding will be your medicine. So if anyone has any questions, I would love to answer. I have the Q&A open here. Okay. Okay, so someone said, I personally think I'm tridoshic because I've gotten very different results no matter how many times I've taken quiz and surveys on Ayurveda. So yes, it's actually very rare for anyone to be tridoshic, because to be tridoshic, that's kind of like what we're all going for, to have like total balance. That means you don't have any imbalances. We all have all three doshas in us, but very few of us are perfectly balanced levels, because most of us have some sort of symptom of something. So for Cassie, who asked me that she thinks she's tridoshic, yes, you will notice that you will answer yes to things of all three doshas, but see where your natural tendencies are. So is your problem with your digestion? See, is it a Vata issue, a Pitta issue, or a Kapha issue, or is it with your skin or with anything? Or if you have no symptoms at all and you're in just perfect health, then you are tridoshic, and my hat's off to you. So yeah, it can be confusing because everyone's like, I don't know, I'm just all of the doshas. And that's why it's really important to have consultations, because when I consult with people, I actually go through everything. It takes about an hour to go through every single aspect of their lifestyle, and then I'm able to see what comes naturally from them and what comes from externalities. So for everyone listening right now, I just want to offer that I will take off 50% off of my consultations, because I think that this is really important work to be spread, and I want to help you guys. Really, I know for me it was my calling to spread this ancient knowledge, so I want to bring it to as many people as possible. I'm working on an e-course right now that is going to be coming out, and in that e-course, it's going to be a 4-week program. And the first week, we're going to be talking about the different doshas. We're going to go deeper into digestion. We're going to talk about GMOs and its effects on the doshas. We're going to have grocery shopping lists, recipes specifically for you. So it's going to go, and I'm going to have videos, audios. We're going to talk about the tastes. There are 6 tastes in Ayurveda that you need to have every single day. And there are also 20 food qualities like rough, dry, mobile, clear. It gets really complicated. So I've been studying Ayurveda now for 3 years, and I'm still just at the tip of the iceberg, but it is my calling to share it with you guys. So I'm really excited for this e-course. So anyone who's interested as well, you can shoot me an email at Sahara@EatFeelFresh, or if you're following me on Instagram and social media, I'll be posting about it. But for you guys, I also want to give a discount because it means so much to me that you're tuning in here, and I really want to honor that and thank you guys for that, because I know you have a million places to go and to be right now. And I know I always see webinars that I want to attend and I don't, and it just really, I'm like emotional talking about it. Like, thank you guys so much for taking the time to be here, really. So email me so I can give you a discount on that as well. Someone asked me, Nate, how do we start changing our eating habits? So I always think of things like starting off really with something that you can sustain. Don't do everything at once, because if you do that, you're one week going to be totally Ayurvedic, and the next week be totally the SAD diet, standard American diet, which is just sad. So think of one thing this week that you can change. So maybe you are drinking just cold water all the time. Just switching to warm water. And I don't mean just like room temperature water. I mean, we all need to be drinking warm water that is at least 98 degrees, because that's going to be better absorbed by our bodies. And it's going to allow us to be more hydrated. And our colon, the moment it's dehydrated is the moment that it stops producing the enzymes needed for digestion. So you need to be drinking warm water, a sip every 20 minutes. That's what Ayurveda recommends. So it's not just downing a bunch of water, it's constantly drinking it. Like you'll notice in Ayurveda or in the Chinese people, they have tea with them all the time. They're just taking small sips. They're not like, and we should learn from that. So maybe this week it's having water. Like when you go to Starbucks, just order hot water, it's free. And then mix that in with your normal water and just sip it throughout the day. And then that's gonna give you tons of water right there. So just combining the boiling water with the cold water, that can be a really good first step to take. Then afterwards saying, okay, I'm going to try having more, ginger in my diet, sauteing ginger, putting it in your food, having that ginger tea. Or maybe you're a pitta and you're eating lots of spicy foods, trying to do things more simply, maybe only having 5 ingredients at a time instead of making a stir fry with a million things. Or if you're more Vata, scheduling meal times. That can be a huge thing. Instead of just snacking on whenever you're hungry or eating while you're driving, 30% of meals in America are consumed while driving. Like, I'm afraid of being on the road right now. Like 30% of people are eating. Like, are you going to hit me with your car? Like, this is insane. And if your body is driving a heavy motor vehicle and eating, like, what's it going to, I think it's pretty sure it's more important to focus on the driving. So your body's not going to be absorbing those nutrients. So it's basically a caloric waste. So focusing, having the meal times, having the mindful eatings, going from there, then naturally you're going to start craving those more healthy foods because you're eating them in a more healthy way. Most of the times when we want sugar and candy and stuff, we're not like sitting down and like honoring it. We're just like, I need something sweet. And we like, like half the time when I do that, I'm in the kitchen and I don't even get to sit down before I eat it. I'm like, oh my God, why did I just do that? And that's because I'm catching myself during an imbalance and I'm satisfying that imbalance, which is making me go more imbalanced. So bringing that balance back into your diet, I think that's the first thing you can do, bringing it into your lifestyle. And then from there, week by week, add a new thing. Maybe it's add a new vegetable every week. Or instead of having a granola bar, have fruit. Or changing your breakfast to something more warming. And that's something we'll definitely discuss in my e-course as well. Each week, we're going to be bringing in a new thing, and I'm going to be working along with you guys. So that way, in 4 weeks, you'll have a total lifestyle change instead of in one session when I can tell you all these things, but I don't know if you're actually going to go do them. So someone said, I'm listening from Massachusetts. Thank you for sharing all of your knowledge. Thank you. And I'm from Massachusetts, so what's up? Marissa asked, if someone develops an imbalance that is not their primary dosha, do they focus on countering the imbalance or strengthening their primary dosha? Awesome question. So you will focus on countering that imbalance. So let's say you're naturally a Vata, and you're suffering you're having really kapha time in your life. You just don't feel like moving. You don't feel like yourself anymore. So focus on bringing down that kapha. So focus on adding stimulation and things like that. At the same time, you want to be mindful of your Vata. So I wouldn't do a raw diet, but adding that ginger water in, starting to exercise, eating more kind of like steamed greens and things like that. But at the same time, don't go completely raw. So you want to keep your natural dosha in mind, but you want to address that imbalance. Okay? So always do the thing that counters the imbalance. And honestly, there are so many recipes and ways that you can eat tridoshic, like having a lentil soup, or khichdi, which is lentil and brown rice with spices. That's tridoshic. Most healthy foods are tridoshic. It's really like the things that are very specific, like don't have too much chocolate if you're pitta. You know, too much chocolate for anyone is not good. Or don't eat too many raw foods if you're Vata. No one should be really eating all raw foods. Very, very few people can live like that. Or don't have too much dairy if you're kapha. But no one should be eating too much dairy. So really focus on that imbalance, because the advice that imbalance is going to give probably will help you whatever dosha you are. And if you have any more questions or a specific imbalance that you want to talk about, let me know. Okay, and then Cassie said, if you are tridoshic, what's the best way to stay in balance? And I mean, if you're tridoshic, then continue what you're doing. Just continue to check in with your body and see what your body needs. Because then the moment you're feeling off balance, you'll know. You'll say, I'm feeling really acidic. I feel like my pitta's off. Or, oh, I'm feeling really tired. I feel like my kapha's off. Or I'm really scattered and cold. My vata's off. Then you can quickly see what it is and see how you can solve it. And you're at the right point, so it's going to be much easier for you than someone who's just has all of these imbalances and doesn't even know where to start. Okay, someone said that they just stepped into this. So yeah, so that's all the questions that I have right now from people. So I really wanted to share with you guys that I'll be doing this every single week, and I'll also be bringing out the e-course, which is going to go really deep into Ayurveda. So this weekly webinar is going to be on a range of topics, not just Ayurveda, but I'm going to talk about natural health or psychology or conscious relationships and healing methods and, you know, all sorts of things. But if you're really interested in diving deep into Ayurveda, then my e-course is going to be perfect for you. It's going to be a membership course. So we're going to have like a Facebook group where we're all going to be talking, and it's going to be like a membership portal where you can like log in and post things and see how other people are doing. We're going to have weekly modules with PDFs and videos and audio. So I noticed that, you know, so many people, and myself included, wanted to study Ayurveda, but there was no really place that did it in a modern way. A lot of it was really ancient, really, you know, like a lot of Ayurvedic texts. Like when I was studying Ayurveda, I like fought with the people every day. I was like, how are you saying this? And because it was almost like religious to me. They didn't question a lot of things. And for me, I'm all about questioning and explaining things with science. And that's the beauty of Ayurveda. Like when you really look into it, it makes total sense. Like on my past retreat, the East Meets West Healing Retreat, my co-host, Jessica of MDKY Girl, her mom, who's been an RD for decades, she listened to me speak about Ayurveda and she's like, this makes so much sense, because she has been studying and working in hospitals for so many years. And they unknowingly were recommending things that Ayurveda just intuitively knew 5,000 years ago when it was created. So Ayurveda and science can really go hand in hand. So what I wanted to create with this e-course was somewhere that you can learn about both sides of it and also learn about how I can apply it to my life. So it can be really theoretical, but it's like, okay, well, what does that mean to me? And that's why I try to bring it down into the most like explainable, conversational ways possible, so you can know how to bring these lifestyle changes into your life without kind of going totally off fray and mashing spices and things like that. So I really hope that these suggestions helped you, and I'm definitely going to be sharing more in my e-course as well as on Instagram. I have videos already up on my YouTube channel. I have videos for every single dosha where I talk more specifically about the foods, and I also do the consultation. So for everyone who just tuned in, consultations are 50% off for everyone who is in there. If you just email me at sahara@eatfeelfresh.com and tell me you were in this webinar. So someone just asked, does Ayurveda have any particular restrictions? Is it a primarily vegetarian or plant-based lifestyle? So that's an awesome question, and I have an entire chapter written about that in my book, Eat Right for Your Mind Body Type, which will also be coming out soon. So Ayurveda does recommend a vegetarian diet for healthy people, and that's because your body doesn't need meat to survive. I can go into this for a really long time, but I won't right now. But there's a lot of scientific evidence. People say that humans were not meant to digest meat. For example, our colons are 32 feet long, and carnivores are only about 8 feet long, and we don't have the acid and things like that. As well as Ayurveda came from India, and the creators were Hindu, and they believed in honoring the circle of life and not killing an animal that did not need to have its life taken away. However, it does recommend meat consumption if you have a debilitating disease or are extremely weak. So someone who just had an eating disorder, or maybe they're suffering from bone loss. So very Vata people, meat can help them come back into balance. And that's still honoring the circle of life, because in order for you to continue living, you are taking that life of that animal. So it is continuing that respect. Whereas a lot of Americans just kind of eat meat because it's there and they don't need it. In fact, most of them are eating way too much of it. And also making sure that it is grass-fed or free-range, or the most organic source you can find, getting it from a local butcher or whatever. But you don't need meat at all. I don't eat meat personally, and I'm doing fine, and I am a Vata. You can have things like goat milk yogurt. So Ayurveda does recommend dairy for Vata types. Not for Kapha because it makes them too mucousy. For Pitta, a lot of Pitta types I've noticed. So I like to blend in Ayurveda with different dietary philosophies. So a lot of Pitta types I notice are blood type O's, and blood type O's do not do well with dairy. So if you are a Vata type, you could have goat milk yogurt. You can have eggs. These things can really help you. And in Ayurveda, it is still honoring the circle of life, because a goat did not have to be killed to give its milk, or a chicken does not have to be killed to take away its eggs. And not all eggs actually turn into chickens. A chicken can lay maybe 10 eggs a day, and maybe one of them will turn into an actual animal. So, but back then, they had their chickens in their backyard. It wasn't factory farming. So again, honoring, making sure you're getting it from the right source. But definitely plant-based. For sure. Doesn't mean every single thing you eat is a leafy green. It's not a raw diet. You can have grains, but definitely plant-based. Get your protein from your legumes. Get it from your beans, your lentils. Having things like tempeh can be a good option. So tempeh is fermented soybeans. So it doesn't have that same sticky consistency as tofu. But it is very high in protein, and the fermentation makes the soy easier for your body to digest. And there's a lot of controversy around soy. However, if you look at cancer.org, there has been a lot of research done that in areas such as in Asia, women who eat soy products actually have the lowest rates of breast cancer, because soy has phytoestrogen in it, which can help balance the negative, the bad estrogen in your body, and it can actually help negate breast cancer symptoms. At the same time, over 90% of soy in this country is GMO. So we want to stay away from that. So making sure it is organic. And sadly, sometimes things are listed as organic and they're not. So I would get it from, small, I would stay away from these big corporations like Silk and stuff. I wouldn't get like their soy milk. But if you know a place that they make their own tempeh and tofu, that's a great option. And tempeh generally is a lot better because it's less mass produced, and you can actually see the soybeans. Edamames are another really great option as well, especially if you're suffering from kind of weakness and frailty. These things can really help add that extra protein in. You can also do vegetarian, vegan, or raw protein powders like There's so many brands out there, like Vega, Sun Warrior, Garden of Life, and they oftentimes do brown rice-based protein or pea protein, and they sometimes mix it in with different superfoods. I wouldn't rely on a protein powder, to be honest, because you can get protein in from spirulina and chlorella and tons of plant-based sources. But if it's really difficult for you to get it in, then it's a much better option, I think, than ordering a burger. So if there are any more questions, does anyone else have any questions they want to throw out before we finish? Okay, well, it looks like that was everyone. So I am here for you guys anytime. I'll be hosting this webinar every single week. I'll be bringing in different people that I'll be interviewing, different topics we'll be discussing. But if Ayurveda is something that you're personally really interested in, then schedule a consultation with me for 50% off. Or my e-course will be out. Also, people that are based in Los Angeles, I'll definitely be hosting workshops. And if you're anywhere else, I'll definitely be probably coming to New York and in Boston as well, San Francisco, to host workshops. I do host retreats. At the same time, I was going to host a Costa Rica one, but it was rain season, and I want to make this affordable, and I want to make this accessible for the average person. And I know for most people, they can't take a week off and go to a foreign country. Like, that's so difficult for us. And I want this to be, this is why I did this for free. I just want to spread this knowledge, put it far out and wide. And that's why every single week I'll just be doing this and putting this content out there. So I really appreciate you guys tuning in and telling your friends and bringing everyone on board, because I think that when people are nourishing their bodies right, they're better to everyone around them. And we can make the world a better place just by making our bodies, our temples, the best place possible. So thank you guys for tuning in. It's been an awesome hour. I hope this helped answer your questions. And if you have any more, email me at sahara@eatfeelfresh.com. And this will be posted on YouTube for you to rewatch. If something you want to repeat, you can just press it again and post in the comments, and I'll definitely be able to answer them as well. Okay, have an amazing night. Namaste.